Well, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. I can't tell you how great it is to spend a Friday lunchtime with everyone here today, and I'm so looking forward to having Stephen speak with the group today. And I've attended one of his sessions, so has Bethan, and we're in for a real treat. We're going to start with some housekeeping items. So we're going to ask that you keep your audio on mute. There will be opportunities for questions and answers, and at that time you can unmute, but we get a lot of feedback if you're not muted. We want you to choose your own view, speaker versus gallery. So there is a button in the top right-hand corner, and you're able to do that. Please, there's a chat feature at the bottom. Enter your questions at any time. I also have the list of questions that you submitted with your registration, and we will make sure that Stephen gets to all of them. So I will be monitoring that, so please ask at any time. Stick around to the end because there will be time for Q&A. We're also recording this session. Now there will be breakout rooms, so we encourage you to keep your cameras on for those so you get to know some new people, but the breakout rooms are not recorded, but we will be recording the session and sending it out later. And as always in our nonprofit leadership series, we ask you please take a moment to fill in an evaluation that will be sent to you along with the session details from today and the recording. And we're also looking for next topics. Who do we want to have as speakers and what's important and relevant to you? So please let us know. I'm going to turn it over now to Bethan.
Thanks, Diane. So I'm happy to chat with you this morning about our virtual convening principles. So Leadership Waterloo Region, like many organizations, had to pivot pretty quickly at the onset of COVID to be able to continue to provide our programming. So it was important for us to adopt these virtual convening principles to guide how we would approach this unusual situation. And I'm happy to say that we are living these principles still today. So the first one is nobody signed up for this, not for sickness, not for physical distancing, and not for the additional stresses that this type of a situation can put on us all, and not for having to facilitate virtually and shifting and creating new roles for folks that handle all of this virtual facilitation, and not for participating at home and what that can bring on board, and also for mastering new technologies. Oops. Sorry about that. The second one is we will remain human-centered. So we are going to prioritize supporting each other as whole human beings and whatever that comes with. We're going to prioritize sharing resources and communicating clearly. Number 3 is that we can and will continue our mission virtually. So shared experiences, for those of you that are not familiar with Leadership Waterloo Region, they're a really big part of the work that we do. It's creating those connections, those bonds to be able to learn and grow together. And they're not really possible in a large group setting right now, but we commit to creating emotionally engaging virtual spaces instead. And the last one is we will remain flexible and adjust to the situation. So nobody knows where this is going or for how long. We'll have to keep adapting to this new situation. And everybody really needs to support and understand each other in this unprecedented time. And in times of crisis, we have opted to lean on strengths-based leadership of trust, compassion, stability, and hope. So this is something that's a document that we've developed that's really helped to guide us in moving forward. And we do have it available. So if anybody would like to download a copy of it, feel free to just reach out to me and I would be happy to send that out to you. Alrighty, I'm going to turn it back to Diane now, who will introduce our fantastic speaker for today.
Excellent. Well, let me tell you, it is my pleasure to introduce to you today Stephen Shedletsky. Stephen engages with people in meaningful ways so that we connect with depth and live in a more fulfilled world. With a knack for sharing the right words at the right moment, he delivers evidence-based content in a provocative, captivating, and lighthearted way. Feeling stifled on his corporate track, Stephen was struck by Simon Sinek's vision of a more inspired, safe, and fulfilled world. He joined Sinek's team in 2012. What started as a position answering fan email, Stephen now leads brand experience and the team of igniters to ensure every product, partnership, and communication reflects the organization's most deeply held beliefs. As an igniter himself, he guides leaders and organizations to adopt the mindset and actions needed to lead in the infinite game. A dedicated aide to the Simon Sinek team and those they serve, Simon is first in line to support those who seek to discover, articulate, and bring their why to life. With the right mix of passion and professionalism, Stephen was an obvious choice to narrate the audiobook for the 2017 bestseller, Find Your Why. He has co-hosted the Start With Why podcast with more than 715,000 downloads in over 180 countries. Wow. And I have to say, Stephen, in our Leadership Waterloo Region course, Start With Why is the first textbook our class receives. Stephen graduated from the Richard Ivey School of Business with a focus in leadership, communication, and strategy. He brings a message to inspire to people and organizations around the world and serves clients in nearly every industry. Stephen lives in Toronto with his wife and 2 children. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that exceptionally warm welcome. Hi, everyone. I love doing some work in my own backyard and to see a number of familiar faces, not in the backyard as well. Massimo, Yang, Daria, I see a lot of you guys that we've seen on a bunch of our classes old as well. Hi, guys. So here's what we're going to do. It'll be action-packed, it'll be fun, and want to design this in a way that is valuable for you guys. And thanks, Bethan and Diane and Leadership Waterloo for hosting me and this. So we are going to cover the infinite game and how to use the concepts from it to pivot what you do as an individual or as an organization. We'll walk through how to lead with an infinite mindset in the infinite games that we're all a part of, without ignoring finite games as well, because finite games are important. We'll do that for about 20 minutes. We'll then put you into some breakout groups to discuss what lands, what doesn't land, and where you want to take yourself on to grow as an individual or organization. We'll do a breakout discussion for 15 or 20 minutes or so, and then come back for a full room open Q&A, where we will try to answer every and all questions. Bring them on. Sound good? Great. Okay. So for those of you, thanks Sandra for that feedback, I love it. For those of you who are familiar with Simon Sinek and his work, you might be familiar with Start With Why, which was his first book. He came out with that over 10 years ago. Thank you, Diane and Bethan, for sharing that work. The neat thing about Simon and all of his work is it's all been semi-autobiographical. He had an experience in his own life that profoundly changed the way that he viewed and operated in this world. And he wanted to share it with as many people as possible to help them, which is service, which is fulfillment. Start With Why is all about a pattern that every great leader and every inspiring organization all think, act, and communicate with their why, their purpose in mind. They start with their why. They have clarity of their why, they're disciplined in how they bring it to life, and they're consistent with what they do. That's what authenticity means. We all say we want to work for the authentic leader or work for the authentic organization. What does authenticity mean? Authenticity literally means that you say and do the things you actually believe. Simon then wrote Leaders Eat Last, which is all around getting the inside of the organization right. It's a book about culture and servant leadership, which is really just synonymous with leadership, I think. No such thing as leadership without service. And Leaders Eat Last was really a focus on the inside of an organization. Most recently, Simon came out with The Infinite Game. A number of years ago, he was exposed to the work of James Carse. In 1986, James Carse wrote a pretty seminal book on game theory called Finite and Infinite Games. And the first chapter of The Infinite Game builds upon that and applies it to the many infinite games that we all live each and every day, whether we know it or not. If you have 2 or more players, you have a game. And as it turns out, there are at least these 2 types of games: finite games and infinite games. Finite games have known players, agreed upon rules and objectives and metrics for success, and there are clear winners and losers. There is a clear beginning, middle, and end of a finite game. Baseball or hockey or chess, right? We show up to that game, it has a clear end, we hope to win. If we don't win, we hope to come back and play again. Finite game. Infinite games, on the other hand, have known and unknown players. The rules can change. The rules are arbitrary. The metrics of success are arbitrary. We make them up. And there is no end. So the question is, how do you win a game that has no end? And the answer is you cannot compute. In infinite games, there are no winners and losers because the game keeps going. There's only ahead and behind. And if you think about it, we're all players in infinite games, whether we know it or not. While our lives are finite, we're gonna die. Life is infinite. It has been around before us and it'll be around after us. Our careers are infinite. There's no winner of career. There's no winner of life. Even Charlie Sheen has to admit that one. All organizational life, there's no winner of global politics. There's certainly no winner of for impact organizations. There's no winner of business. There's no winner of education, healthcare, policing, any of these things. But think of the way that most leaders speak about business, for example, or organizations. They say, be the best, be number one, or in some instances, beat the competition. And though for many of us in the charitable sector, we don't consider competition, well, sure, but we all have funding that we're all looking to go after. There are other players in the game, and some of us will show up with a mindset to beat rather than to advance. We're all players in infinite games, but the question is, how do we lead for the game that we're actually in? Because if we lead with the wrong mindset for the game we're in, trouble ensues. If we're playing in a game of baseball and we use an infinite mindset, that's an issue. The goal isn't to win, the goal is to just stay in the game. Well, no, the game ends, you should probably try and win that one. Similarly, if we're in an infinite game and we play with a finite mindset, we get into quagmire, and there's very predictable results, which are the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, and the decline of innovation. Think of the war on drugs, for example. If you have the drug administration that is trying to beat a drug lord or win the war on drugs, and then you have the drug establishment that's just their existence. As soon as you take down one drug lord, another one emerges. So there's no winning that game. It is only keeping that game at bay, and we get into quagmire if we try to win games that have no ends. So the question is, how do you lead with an infinite mindset? And it is a practice. There are 5 essential practices that we all must do to lead with an infinite mindset for an infinite game: our lives, relationships, career, and our organizations. And it's like the choice to lead a healthy lifestyle. We know to be healthy, there are a number of practices we must maintain, and let's face it, there's no end. We can't just reach a state of health and then throw out all the practices. We got to keep doing all the practices. And what are they? Diet, exercise, sleep, nurture our relationships, which makes this time very hard of physical distancing. Not impossible, but hard. And the question is, which one do I do first? Yeah, all of them. Yeah, but where do I start? Just start and keep going and do all of them always. And let's face it, what makes us healthy at 35 is different than what makes us healthy at 55. And the same is with the infinite game. What makes us thriving and successful now will shift as market conditions and the environment around us shift. So we must maintain and do all of these practices always. This isn't a checklist, this is practices. So let's run through each of them. Advance a just cause, build trusting teams, study our worthy rivals, prepare for existential flexibility, of which many of us are in right now, our organization at Simon Sinek included, and demonstrate the courage to lead. So, just cause. If you wish to lead with an infinite mindset, you need to give people something meaningful to contribute toward, so that we feel that we belong. We feel that our work has value and matters beyond simply the output that we put out into the world. A just cause is a specific vision of a future state that does not yet exist. And it's a future state that's so appealing that we're willing to make sacrifices in order to help advance toward that vision. In some instances, that sacrifice could be our lives. In other instances, it could be showing up early to work and staying late, working long hours, taking business trips, leaving our family, accepting lower pay to continue to stay here and do this job because we so believe in what we're pursuing and the people that we're pursuing it with. The most important thing about these sacrifices is they all feel as though they're worth it. It isn't resentment. It feels that it's worth these sacrifices. There are some great examples of just causes around us. The Declaration of Independence, etched in 1776, is a good example. In it, it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is pretty good for a Canadian to know that one. Martin Luther King Jr. put into clear words a better world, a world where we aren't evaluated or judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character, right? That's a vision we're still trying to bring to life today. And let's face it, when we populate Mars and mess that one up too, we'll be drawing upon Dr. King for inspiration of a more just and equal society. Our company's just cause comes from Simon, our visionary and founder. We imagine a world different than the one we live in today. We see a world in which the vast majority of people wake up inspired, feel safe wherever they are, and finish their day at work feeling fulfilled by the work that they do. We notice an interesting pattern in just causes. This didn't make the book, so this is Infinite Game 307, not 101. But there are three factors that tend to be included in just causes. Not all the time, but it's a pattern we noticed. An ideology, a safety component, and an economic component. Inspired, ideology, safety, fulfillment, economic, life, safety, liberty, ideology, pursuit of happiness, economic. So just a pattern that we noticed. A question that we often get is, what's the relationship between why and just cause? And there is one. Our why is our purpose. It comes from our past. It's who we are. To find our why, we look to our past. We think of the moments that make us proud to feel who we are, whether that's an individual or an organization. We share those stories that define and make us who we are, and patterns and themes keep emerging. That's what makes up our why and our hows, our beliefs and our values. Our just cause is vision, but as is Simon's genius, he didn't use the word vision, because as soon as you use the word vision, we enter into a semantic debate of which comes first, mission or vision, and what's the definition? Well, forget that debate. Let's not spend our time debating language. Let's just spend our time making progress. And so he made up a new word, just cause. Our just cause is vision, but what it is, it's a world in which our why is idealized. You look at your why statement. So Simon's why statement, our company's why statement, to inspire people to do the things that inspire them, so that together each of us can change our world for the better. And our just cause is a world in which the vast majority of people feel inspired, safe, and fulfilled. Our just cause is a world in which our why is perfectly brought to life. Think of your why as the foundation of a home, and the just cause as the many ways it can be brought to life through different architecture and design. Our just cause is actually subjective, but it paints a clear picture in our mind of a future state such that we can keep moving toward it. And as we make progress, there are mile markers as we go. That finish line keeps getting clearer and clearer and clearer. But the best part is we'll never actually get there. We'll only die trying and hopefully inspire the next generation to keep carrying the torch ahead. Visions are infinite. That's just cause. Let's chat more soon on that as we go into breakouts and Q&A. Build trusting teams. We need to get the environment right on the inside of the organization. This is what Leaders Eat Last is about. We must create an environment in which people can operate at their natural best. There's the existential question of, if you have an organization that's high on inspiration but low on trust, will it survive? Might be sexy, but it's not going to survive. It won't make it through rough waters. If you have an organization that may be lower on inspiration but is high on trust, will it be able to weather storms? More likely. And ideally, it's both. It's both that you exist for an inspiring idea. Doesn't mean your product needs to be interesting. You just need to stand for something good and human. There's a great example of this, an organization out of St. Louis called Barry Waymiller. They make big machines. but they measure success by the way that they impact people's lives. Their purpose is not to make extraordinary machines. Their purpose is to help create extraordinary people who go on to create extraordinary things and accomplish extraordinary things. So it's both ideally inspiration and trust. But trust matters, and trust, it is harder to build trust when the waters are rough. It is easier to build it when the waters are calm. Think of trust as a bank account. We need to put in constant deposits so that we can make withdrawals when we need it, like times like this. Building trusting teams is creating an environment where your people feel safe to raise their hand and admit fault or mistake. When we have a circle of safety, when we have trust, we know that when we make mistake and when we admit fault, on the other side of it is improvement and not reprimand, right? When we say, I'm not trained to do the job that I've been handed, I feel scared about the future, I'm having trouble at home and it's affecting my work, the response is support rather than reprimand. If the response is reprimand, guess what? We ain't raising our hand to admit faults, and we create a culture in which there's constant lying, hiding, and faking, which always leaks to the end result. There's a great study out of the book Give and Take, written by Adam Grant, where they studied 2 hospital room, emergency room environments. One had strong trusting teams and the other didn't have strong trusting teams. And in the ones where there weren't strong trusting teams, there was a result that baffled them. The number of medical errors reported was lower in the hospital environments where there wasn't trust. What's going on there? Well, it turns out that nurses, doctors, and all employees were spending an inordinate amount of time hiding mistakes from each other for fear that if they were found, they would be reprimanded or fired. Versus in the hospital room environments where there is strong trusting teams, people willingly raise their hand to admit fault, and people would actually argue over whose fault it was. No, that's my responsibility, right? Which hospital do you want to go to? So getting this right is really important. Trust matters dearly. Simon tells a great story of a young employee at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas named Noah, who claimed to love his work, and he loved his work because leaders served him. He said, I love working here because multiple times a day, managers, not even my own manager, come and say, how are you doing? Do you need support to do your job better today? How was that fishing trip with your dad? Noah also volunteered that he worked down the street at another hotel and said there he just punches in and punches out because anytime he's noticed by a manager is when he's doing something wrong and he's reprimanded. He said, only at the Four Seasons do I feel as though I can be at my best. And he willingly shows up early and stays late. And he's charming and wonderful at the Four Seasons, and at the other hotel, he just keeps his head low. Same exact person, and the only difference is the environment in which he's operating in. Too many leaders ask the question of how do I get the most out of my people, as if people are a towel to be wrung. No, it's a flawed question. The right question is how do you create an environment in which your people can operate at their natural best? Trust matters deeply. So, and by the way, we can build trust even in these hard COVID times. Zoom calls are great. Picking up the phone instead of texting, checking in on people, giving them some leeway, we can still do it now. And a nice reminder that culture equals values plus behavior. The very first time I saw the values of my company for the first job that I got out of university was when I didn't touch my computer screen for 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, respect, empowerment, autonomy. Who knew? I had no idea. That's really wonderful. Values aren't just words that we put on the wall. Values have to be lived. We have to make decisions. We have to create systems. We have to recognize and reward people when they are lived, and even acknowledge when they're not being lived and make interventions there. The other thing around trust is we claim as though we have an innovation problem. We don't have an innovation problem. We have a trust problem. Because in order to innovate, it requires that we experiment. And when we experiment, we fail. And if you punish people for failing, guess what? They're not going to take risks and they're not going to innovate. So trust matters. Okay, a few more, and then let's hop into breakouts. Study worthy rivals. I think this is my favorite one. A worthy rival is another player in the game who is worthy of comparison. And they're worthy of comparison because studying them reveals to us our own areas to improve. In the infinite game, there is a competitor. It's ourselves. Our goal is to be better next year than we were this year. I have a friend who leads a religious congregation, and every year he says to his congregants, I hope next year you have a better leader than this year, and I hope that it's still me. The goal is to be better next year than we were this year. And so there are other players in the game. The question is, who do you focus on? And the answer is the ones that help you improve. There are other players in the game, whether they're in your industry or not. And when you look at them, you either admire them because they do something so brilliantly, and let's face it, better than you. And sometimes they make us feel completely insecure because they do things better than us. But the goal is you study the other players in the game, that when you study them, you improve. I'll give you a couple of examples of my own worthy rivals. One is my accountant. I will send my accountant what seems to be a very simple question. It's usually about a 3-line email, and I get about 3 to 4 paragraphs back. And as soon as I receive an email from him, I cringe, and I start to read it, and I start to scratch my head and get more confused, and I get pissed off at my accountant. It has nothing to do with my accountant and everything to do with me and my own ineptitude. He makes me feel insecure because he reveals to me an area where I need to improve. Now, I could get mad at him, or I could strive to improve. Worthy rivals can be all around us. Worthy rivals can be inside or outside of our industry. They can be an organization. They can be another individual. They can even be an ideology or a force. An ideology that we consider a worthy rival on our team at Simon Sinek is the ideas of Milton Friedman and Jack Welch. In the late 70s, they made pervasive the idea that the responsibility of business is to maximize profit and shareholder value in the short term. Not what we believe. We believe the purpose of business is to advance something bigger than ourselves, to protect your people. That's an ideology that we consider a worthy rival, but let's face it, finite-minded leadership is easy to measure. Infinite-minded leadership, harder to measure. And so we study them as a worthy rival because they've been exceptionally successful at making their ideas pervasive, and we're trying to shift it to an alternative. We've done some work with some faith-based organizations. Apathy or massive distrust of large institution. You look at what's going on for policing, law enforcement, especially in the United States right now. There's huge, the actions of a few are tarnishing an entire industry. In faith-based, one church made the beach their worthy rival, because instead of going to church services on Sunday, people would go to the beach. And so instead of trying to beat the beach, they just moved their services to the beach. So our worthy rivals, we can study them. They reveal opportunities for us to improve. They're all around us. And the goal of studying them is they help us get better. That's worthy rival. Prepare for existential flexibility. X-Flex is the capacity to initiate an extreme disruption to a business model or strategic course in order to more effectively advance your just cause. There are prerequisites for this one. You need 2 things: clarity of your just cause and strong trusting teams. If you are about to disrupt and implode your own business, it better be for a pretty good reason. And in order to do it, you need trusting teams, because you're going to put your organization through hell. A great example of this is Steve Jobs in 1979 taking a tour of Xerox PARC. He was introduced to GUI, graphic user interface. I'm sure he wasn't the only executive in the industry who was exposed to this new technology. What GUI enabled you to do is use a mouse to drag icons and folders on your desktop. GUI, graphic user interface, enabled anyone to use a computer. Previously, you needed to know a computer language, but this made it so that anyone could. And Jobs, whose cause is to give the individual power, he had a vision of helping individuals compete with corporations, which is what we can do now. He saw GUI as a way to get there quicker. He went with his executive team in the parking lot. They were working on something called the Lisa. They had already put in months and months of work on the Lisa and millions of dollars. And he said, scrap that, we're working on GUI. To which his executive team, the voice of reason, there were strong trusting teams. So they said, Steve, you're an idiot. We're going to implode our business. To which Steve said, better we do it than somebody else does it to us. Steve found a way better way to bring his cause of empowering the individual to life, and he made a pivot. He said, let's do that. And that decision was the Macintosh OS, which has been the most successful operating system ever, and all of Microsoft's operating systems are designed off of it. Versus Kodak, the origin of Kodak was democratizing photography, was helping anyone capture life's special moments so they last forever. Funny enough, when George Eastman created the first Kodak camera, he shared it with professional photographers and videographers. They claimed the quality of the images was too low. And they said, work on the quality of the images. We like everything else. And he made a choice. Does he work on improving the quality, or does he find a population that cares less about quality? All of us. And thus was born the first successful commercial for public consumption camera. In 1975, an engineer from Kodak named Steve Sasson invented digital photography, and the executive team chose not to pursue it for fear of cannibalizing their traditional film sales. They literally looked at their campus in Rochester, New York, and said, too much change, it's going to affect our bonuses, don't want to do it. And by the time their patents ran out, within 5 years, Kodak was bankrupt because they didn't pivot around their purpose. They pivoted around their business model, what made them money now, rather than what would keep them in existence and thriving and in line with their just cause forever. That's X-Flex. We might have to do it once in our career. We might have to do it 0 times. And X-Flex can even be for us as individuals. I know there was someone who registered, I'm not sure if you're here, Anchor, but a friend of mine out of Louisville, Kentucky has built a business called Interapt that literally teaches miners, coal miners, how to code. Because coal mining isn't so much of a thriving profession in the economy where we are right now, but you can code, and he literally helps people make an X-Flex in their own career and life. Finally, demonstrating the courage to lead. The courage to lead is a willingness to take a risk for the good of an unknown future. All of these things require courage. If you think of advance a just cause, it's exceptionally hard to advance a just cause rather than just think of your short-term results. Build trusting teams. You mean you actually have to care about people's feelings? They can't just get their work done? Yeah, you do, because relationship is the foundation of accomplishment. And it turns out that caring for people ends up being the most fulfilling work that there is. Study-worthy rivals? Nah, thanks. Like, I don't really want to focus on what other people do better than us. That seems like hard work. X-Flex is one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. Our own company has gone through one. At the beginning of March, the vast majority of our revenues came from hopping on planes and doing live events. And we went, looks like we should probably pivot from there. And we've opened up a new marketplace on our website, our live online classes shop that a number of you have taken part in, which is fantastic, where we have a message, we have things and tools and ideas to share. And we just want to open it up to anyone. And we took a big risk. Our most popular products are all pay what you can. So anyone can sign up for free because we just thought it was the right thing to do. And turns out many people have decided to give us their hardworking earned funds because they believe in us, they see value in the work. So that took courage for us to pivot. But the best thing about pivoting is you pivot around an axis. You pivot around your why. What you do can change, but why you do it must remain clear and constant. One quick example of the courage to lead, CVS Caremark, which is like the Shoppers Drug Mart of the South with a soul. My bias is showing, sorry. CVS woke up one morning and looked at their website, and lo and behold, a purpose was on it. Their purpose was to inspire people to lead healthy lifestyles or something to that effect. They looked at what they sold. They sold $1.5 billion of cigarettes every year. They went, that one doesn't feel so right. And what seemed like a decision overnight, though I'm sure it was very well thought out, they took every single cigarette off their shelves. And of course, Wall Street berated them. What are they doing? They're handing away market share. How silly could you be? A few remarkable things happened. One, the entire market for cigarette sales shrunk by 1% in the United States, just shrunk. Turns out 70% of smokers wish to quit. but the very places the remedies to quit are sold are right next to the poison. It's like putting a donut shop next to a Jenny Craig, right? Not fair. And so now smokers would go to CVS to pick up their pack of smokes. And when they went and asked for one, they said, sorry, we don't sell those anymore. Would you like to buy Nicorette or whatever it might be? They went, yeah. People quit. Further, vendors flocked to CVS to do business with them because finally someone in that space represented their values, and their stock price recovered in 2 or 3 weeks, and they were just fine. And think about loyalty from their employees and customers alike. Yada, yada, yada. Wall Street and the public markets know nothing. If you take care of your people will take care of each other. If your people take care of each other, they'll take care of the customer, and the customer, those you serve, just take care of you. It's just how it happens. When we demonstrate the courage to lead, turns out that tends to build trust. And the courage to lead is not something internal. It's not from our pancreas. It actually comes from the people around us. A trapeze artist would never try a death-defying act for the first time without the safety net. It's the safety net that gives them courage. It's the people around us in our lives that give us courage to try hard things for the benefit of a better future. Finally, this comes out of chapter 5 of the book, which is my favorite chapter. It takes Milton Friedman's definition of the responsibility of business, which he said was to increase short-term profit and shareholder value. It's given us a world in which people are treated as pawns on a chessboard rather than those with real lives and a livelihood. As Bob Chapman from Barry Wehmiller says, we don't believe in head count, we believe in heart count. We see the responsibility of business, and I think this relates to any of you in the for impact NGO charitable space. First and foremost is to advance a purpose. There are non-for-profits who are not for impact. I believe in for impact, and you can be for impact whether you're for-profit or not for profit. The responsibility of our organizations is to advance a purpose, to offer people a sense of belonging, and that our lives and work have value beyond our physical work and tangible outputs, to protect people, which includes employees, which includes vendors and those we serve, customers or whatever it might be, funders, and the societies in which we operate, and to generate profit. Now, I know many of you, profit isn't how you measure success, but you measure success in some way. It could be funding, could be your operating budget. There are many metrics that you look at as to if you're doing well, but the goal is not the metric. The goal is to generate those metrics such that you can reinvest into 1 and 2. And there are too many organizations in the charitable sector who only live their purpose for the outside and not for the inside. We need to live these things from the inside out. We need to ensure that the world that we're trying to build on the outside represents the world that we've built on the inside for our people who are sacrificing to help create it. So that's all I have to say on my soapbox today. We want to give you guys an opportunity to engage in this and hop into breakouts for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and do some Q&A. So we will send these questions out in the chat as well. But from these ideas that I just shared on leading with an infinite mindset, what resonates and what do you call BS on? And let's have a fun conversation on that. And as well, what stands out for you, either as an individual and your organization, as your greatest opportunity for growth. So I will send that out and pass over to Bethan and Diane to help us get set into our breakout rooms. And I had a nice surprise of joining a breakout room, so I got to have some discussion as well. But Diane and Bethan, over to you guys.
Great. So thank you for that, Stephen. Are you wanting to start with a question?
Yeah,
question
sure.
and answer period right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Excellent. So anybody have a question that they would like to ask directly to Stephen? And we'll try to monitor here. You can just unmute yourself.
I have a question, Diana.
Excellent. Hi, Diana. Thank you.
Hi. The thing that we were a bit, that we didn't really understand, Stephen, was the story with your accountants.
Me
and
neither. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
okay. uh, because for us, but again, English is not my mother tongue, so maybe I didn't quite understand. But it's not bad if you don't understand what the accountant is saying, because that's his profession, and I have another talent. So why would you feel minor because of the message of the accountant? I think.
Well, I can maybe give you a different example, Diana, but I'm hinting to one of the places we can find our worthy rivals. It's either people that we admire or it's people that make us extremely insecure. So I'll give you another example of one of my worthy rivals. He used to be on our team. He's no longer, so I win. That's an infinite game joke. So there was a guy on our team. He used to be in our product development team. He was really good at what he did, exceptionally talented. He was very analytical and thoughtful. I tend to shoot from the hip and tend to be more reactionary or emotional. He was tall and good looking, and I hated him. Like, I had an irrational hatred. Like, when he did well, I would be pissed. And when I did better, like, I'd be happy. Like, we're on the same team. We have a clear, just cause. Like, what's wrong with me? And he called a meeting with me before we had the language of worthy rival. And he said to me, they call me Shed on our team. He said, Shed, I called this meeting because I have an idea. I want to run it by you because you're my foil and you make my ideas better. And I went, uh-oh, like, this is inconvenient. You're giving me a compliment, and up until now, I haven't liked you. And he said, like, we're opposites, and you think different than I do. And so if I want to make my idea better, I just run it by you. And I'm like, well, that explains a lot. And if you look at our Myers-Briggs, our DISC assessment, like all strengths finders, all of the things, he's a how type and I'm a Y type. And we frustrate the heck out of each other because we don't see the same thing. But if we communicate, get on the same page, we care about the same just cause, we're remarkable. Yeah. And so my hatred toward him had little to do with him and everything to do with me, just because he was way better than me at things that I suck at. Same with my accountant. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you know the Daniel Hoffman model.
No, I'm not familiar. Yeah.
It is like where we have a core talent or a core characteristic that we're really proud of, that makes us strong, but we are allergic to the thing that is the opposite. But we can learn from the people who are the opposite. And that's exactly, I think, what you were explaining now.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean I need to be an expert accountant. Like, that's like me saying, you know what, I think I'm going to be a professional ballet dancer. Probably not the best use of my time and energy because I don't have a ton of skills there, but I need to know, I have to know enough. So, and this is, I think, at what points to, Diana, that as individuals, we're junk, but together we're quite remarkable. It's why we need each other, because we have diverse experiences and strengths that make us better together.
Yeah, it's the synergy we're going for.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone else that would like to ask Stephen a question directly? I do have some questions that came in on registration. Stephen, can we look at those then?
Sure.
Excellent. So how do you work with people that have large egos, gaslighters?
You don't. I mean, we've worked closely with the Navy SEALs, and they talk about trust as it relates to, or they talk about who to hire and who to invest your time and energy in, based on a matrix of performance and trust. And so the Navy SEALs would rather bring on someone who's a medium or low performer of high trust, because you can teach people how to perform. Very hard to teach people how to trust. But we all are familiar with the high performer who's low trust. And though they may be a strong individual performer, they typically throw a wake on trust around the people around them. And so this is where culture equals values plus behavior. If we have a value around collaboration or teamwork, or having team players rather than heroes, we need to reward it. So I'll give you a fun little example of this. So I worked with, it was about 100 and, no, I think they're about 250 person department within a medical device sales organization. And this area had a region. They brought in a new vice president that was handpicked and hired. He was younger, and his task was lead differently. We currently have an environment in which we put the salespeople on a pedestal. It's not doing good things for our culture. We need you to lead differently. Go for it, experiment, like carte blanche. Let us know what you learn, and let's see if we can adapt some things. And so he started his own renaissance, and he believed in a vision of valuing everyone, that everyone was included, regardless of if you're a salesperson or you're in accounting or you're, regardless if you're in administration or in sales, you are a valuable member of this team and we're equals. And so he cast this vision at his leadership offsite meeting, to which all of the high performers of low trust said, stop wasting my time with your kumbaya BS. Just let me lead my own business and get you my results, they said, quote unquote. And so next year, when it was time for the leadership summit, he only brought people to the leadership summit who were team players. He only brought people, regardless of their performance, who were on board with his vision. And guess who called him? His high performers, saying, why am I not invited to this year's leadership summit? Have you seen my numbers? And he said, we're measuring leadership different now. Leadership is about caring for each other, not just the results you get. We're doing that kumbaya BS that you didn't want to be part of. So we're just continuing this way. You're welcome to join us or not. And the funny thing about culture change is too often we focus on the squeaky wheel. And when we focus on the squeaky wheel, if only Nancy wouldn't be such a, then we'd have a great place to work. Sorry, Nancy. But when we only focus on the poor behaviors, we're inadvertently rewarding them, because that's where we're putting our attention. Rather, focus on your champions and say, what do you guys need to get the masses over into champion land, right? We have partners, tourists, and prisoners in every culture, right? Our partners are the people who lean in and they're like, yes, anything I can do to help, love it. They don't need to know all the data and information, they're just bought in. Then you have your tourists, which are the majority. They go, oh, that's an interesting idea. Someone should probably consider doing something about that someday. Not me, but someone, And oftentimes those people wish to be part of the change, they just don't know how. And so it's our responsibility to give them the tools to know how to be a part of the change. And our champions, the people who are beating the drum with us, they're our best recruiters and our best people to equip them with tools. And then our prisoners, we ignore. And they will, within union regulations, we ignore. Or HR code, we ignore. And they will either succumb to positive peer pressure because it's a lot more fun being part of a team, or they will still continue to think that they're the bee's knees, and we're more than happy to offer them to the competition.
Well said.
So that's
and
what
we have another question here from Ying.
Hey,
Hey, Ying.
Hey, I have a question about the tail wagging the dog, because I know that you and Simon talked about it a lot when somebody worked in an organization, and I also encountered that question a lot in my own book club for my members, that, like the idea is so nice, and but I worked in an organization that it's a highly structured, and everybody is living and breathing in fear, and they're looking for their own interest, even like, and people talk from a leadership position and also talk from like entry-level position, and my only response that I can come up with is like, be the leader you wish you had. And then a lot of people say, well, yeah, like I get it, I know, but like how? And I think a little bit coaching from you for addressing that.
Yeah, I mean, Ying, I think we always need to remind ourselves that we're at choice. So I think, sometimes we our primitive minds can think that we're in a life and death situation where we may not be. And we're always at choice. We can choose the way that we show up, and we can choose to be in the job that we're in, or hopefully not. And it doesn't mean we need to quit, but we can work on who are the people we wish to invest our time and energy in. Who are the good eggs? Who are the eggs that we just have to deal with because of politics or bureaucracy, or because they're our boss or our boss's boss or whatever? But also empathy. Like I had a conversation in my breakout room where someone said that, you know, they care so much about trust and infinite mindset and this type of leadership, and then they themselves became a supervisor and found themselves doing the very things that they were against. And it's because leadership is freaking hard. We don't teach people how to do it. It's very lonely. You know, we oftentimes, once we get into a leadership role, all of a sudden there's pressure from our leaders above of get the results, get the results, get the results. And the answer is always empathy. Hey boss, you were just hard on us. Are you okay? The answer is find peers who are in your organization or outside of your organization who believe in leading this way, and you can form your own little cohort. And so, you know, I really just encourage you, Ying, you know, be the leader you wish you had, and find the other people who wish to lead in the way that you see, whether they're in your organization, in your industry or not, and just keep going. And you know, the power of the world that we live in today is, you know, to Adam Grant's definition of success. Yes, it takes hard work and a bit of talent and some luck, but also reciprocity style. Are you the type of person that's known as a giver? And that's when opportunities just emerge within your organization and in others as well. So I know it's not perfect advice or coaching, but it's take the high road and trust that, you know, nice guys finish last, meaning we have longevity.
Thank you, Stephen.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Just find your tribe and invest in them.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. I'm proud to say you're part of ours.
Great. So I think we have time for one more question, if anybody has one. If not, I have one that was sent in during the registration. Stephen, we had a lot of questions come through all around how do we do this virtually? How do we build trusting teams? Whether we're trying to change the culture of the organization or whether it's a new team being put together, how do we build that virtually?
Yeah, I mean, one, there is I keep mentioning Adam Grant. He's a worthy rival of our team, but he believes in the same just cause. He recently on his LinkedIn put out something that actually came out of the Canadian government of just nice practices of these COVID times. I think it's actually worth reading because it's so good. Working remotely, COVID-19 principles. You are not working from home. You are at your home during a crisis trying to work. Like, you know, boom. Your personal, physical, mental, and emotional health is far more important than anything else right now. You should not try to compensate for lost productivity by working longer hours. Emphasis on try. We're all guilty of that one. You will be kind to yourself and not judge how you are coping based on how you see others coping. You will be kind to others and not judge how they are coping based on how you are coping. Your team's success will not be measured the same way it was when things were normal. I mean, there are some silver linings in these clouds. I usually travel a lot for work. I haven't traveled since late February. We've had family dinner every single night. I'm finding that I'm calling more friends than I'm just, you know, usually texting. And now, like, you know, everyone used to go, how you doing? Good. Like, no, you're not. Like, I know you're not doing good. There's no way that you're doing good. Like, how are you really doing? Like, what's really up? And let's face it, there's always stuff going on for us that could be improved, or, you know, and I think now it's fair game to really meet people where they're at. Tell me what sucks, what's hard, you know, and form real relationships with people. And so you know, people will remember. We've worked our team quite hard in these past 3 months, simply because if we didn't, we wouldn't be in existence. But now that things are beginning to let up, and consistently, like, we force people to take a day off. You know, I think we'll remember. Louis Vuitton did something interesting where they're only allowing people to book meetings between the hours of 11 to 1 p.m. You're allowed to work outside those hours, but no meetings. Pretty drastic. but pick up the phone, have Zoom meetings, start with a check-in, like go around the room. How are you guys doing? Share an adjective that describes how you're feeling right now, and like listen and then follow up. Hey, like I'll give you a quick little example of this in action from our team. It's going to make me cry. On one of our team huddles, I said to our team, it's really hard because even if I take a day off or I take a break, like I hear my kids running upstairs right now. My wife is having a hard time with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I said to our team out loud that when I take a break, I'm not really taking a break. I'm just going and working harder in a different context. And so Simon called me on Thursday that week and said, I heard what you said. I want to make sure you're okay. You're valuable to this team. I need you to be okay. You can always call me, right? Know that I'm here with you. Like, and he literally moved to tears saying, I need you too much. Don't burn yourself out. Like, so it's possible. It is very possible. Live what Bethan opened with, that we can still be human-centered. And we need to look at productivity a little bit differently. Because when we come out of this, if we treat our people like shit and we use them as expendable resources and we don't give them some empathy for the fact of what's going on in their lives, they will remember and they will be quick to run to a different opportunity as soon as they can. So treat people as people because we need each other.
Stephen, that is the perfect way to wrap this up. You know, your last sentence there, treat people as people. We're all in this together. I know when we talk about creating those spaces where we make people feel safe and able to be the best that they can be, and those worthy rivals, we're not comparing ourselves anybody but ourselves, you know, and how can we be better? I think you've given us a lot of tools today, and I can't think of better advice during these times because it is difficult. We are coping. I don't know many people that are thriving, but we're getting through. And I just want to say thank you for your time. We will share the resources. We've had actually someone ask about if we could have the link to those Government of Canada reality virtual convenient principles, I guess.
COVID principles, yes.
We will send all of that information out to everyone who registered. You'll receive a recording of today, as well as all of the information. So again, Stephen, thank you. Just a couple more things. We will be hosting a program information session. So first of all, you know, we had registrants here from France in my group today, and we have people from the UK, throughout Europe as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking that. But for folks in Waterloo region, Leadership Waterloo region we're recruiting. So our class does start September. We will run September to June, and we have an information session coming up on Thursday, June 11th. So if you have any questions at all about the program, just reach out. We're happy to answer those, and we do have that session coming up. As well, our upcoming sessions for the Nonprofit Leadership Series, we are looking for new speakers and what are you interested in? So please make sure you fill in your evaluations, and we will be able to take all of that into consideration. And all of our past sessions are available on the YouTube channel, the @Leadership Waterloo Region YouTube. Please follow us on social media. We'll keep everyone up to date on the latest and greatest. And you will also receive information because you attended this session. We will let you know of sessions in the future. So that's all from us today. Thank you so much again, Stephen. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to all of our alumni that are on the call as well. And have a great weekend because it is Friday. Thank you.